All right, Bruce, we got to start with the John Cena promo, heel promo, version 2, week 2. I thought, like last week, it seems to be working, but I was hoping for something different this week than we got, something a little more different. I'm not trashing the Cena promo. I just was hoping for more. I don't know how important it is to overall business, but I kind of still am curious, and it wasn't clear to me last week or this week. When did Cena decide the fans were loser leeches? Was it 2 years ago, just at the beginning of his retirement tour, when Cody won the title and he got jealous of Cody being more popular and the fans not booing him, which I thought would be a major talking point for the heel turn, and it hasn't come up? Was it 10 years ago? Was it 25 years ago when he introduced? I still have no idea, and I think that's kind of important. To the context of Cena deciding to turn heel, was he faking it all along, or at what point did he start faking it? And it doesn't seem anything but obvious to me that needs to be really established. Number 2, Cody Rhodes continues to be, I don't know if you ever look at like UFC.com when they don't have a photo of a fighter, so they just have a black outline, and it's like someone who hasn't fought before and they don't have a studio picture of him. John Cena's this black outline of a champion. John Cena is not talking about Cody Rhodes at all. This is it's so self-centered and selfish, and not in a storyline productive way, for him to not actually talk about what Cody Rhodes means to his own legacy, and that Cody's success, his popularity, his journey, something. And I was like, well, I want to give him, and last week I said it, I want to give him till this week, kind of see if it's they're not going to repeat themselves. They just want new material each week. And then finally, and I'm sort of have mixed feelings about this, they're not talking about The Rock. And so the storyline is existing in some universe that is separate from the context of the turn. The context of the turn was Cody turning down Rock, and then we all assumed Cena going, if not Cody, I'll sell my soul to you, The Rock. Last week, no mention of Rock. This week, no mention of The Rock. No alluding to it, no eliminating that he sold his soul, but not including it either. It's like this separate universe, and I'm actually getting a little more irritated about this now. That it just Cena's just doing his own thing without regard to, I think, three pretty important things. When did he decide the fans were leeches and losers? 2, please address Cody Rhodes out of freaking respect for the top guy in the business who you're going to be wrestling at WrestleMania, and get out of your own head. And number 3, tie in that loose end with Rock. Bruce, what do you think?
Out to the second point, I do like the fact that Cody brought it back and said, to get to this belt, you have to go through me first. He made sure he brought it back, which is good. But to your first point, and kind of to the earlier point you made before you got to that question, today's episode, there were a lot of things that felt like reruns to me. The Cena Cody segment felt like a rerun. Belair and Ripley arguing over each other and wishing Io in the face. That's 3 straight weeks now we've seen that. A couple of things in the big picture just seem to be, usually in the European shows, we know they don't seem to do the best, but I figured with them being on Netflix and being live, they would do a little more in terms of caretaking who they have, and it felt kind of,
well, Bruce, I want to interrupt. Your microphone is really, it's hard to hear you. I don't know if you can get closer or adjust it at all. There's something about it that's just not quite super clear. And so you can address that. And we'll definitely get to the big picture on Raw. And after Block A here, I want to really focus on Cena at the moment. I have a lot I want to talk about the points you're bringing up too. But as far as the Cena promo and his points, I also definitely want to get comments from in the chat and email and with our live callers too, about whether I'm making too much of what I am wanting to look for in the Cena promo. And if it maybe isn't germane to the big picture, I will certainly push back on that. Yeah, we can hear you, Bruce. Now we can.
So Wade, the issue is I can't hear you right now. I'm going to need to figure something out on my end real quick.
Sure, I can actually hear you, so that's fine. So Bruce will chime back in with us in a moment. His audio, as noted in the chat too, wasn't particularly strong. So what we got this week was Cena again, and it was so similar to last week, is the fans irritated him. And this week there was new material. It wasn't a total rerun in terms of being in that same zone, because Cena talked about how the spinner belt was that he was, castigated for this, that it was an affront to wrestling tradition for him to have this belt that was a toy. And so Cena went on about it, saying that the belt being a toy is now going full circle to he's going to ruin the wrestling business. Because fans back then were saying he was ruining the tradition with a toy belt title. And so the news of the promo, it's not entirely focused on what I was looking for and didn't get, although I think those points are germane, as I said. I think the news out of the Cena promo is that he's going to ruin the wrestling business because he's going to win the title from some unnamed champion who he doesn't mention or barely looks at. And then he's going to leave. He's going to retire, and they're going to have to create a new toy belt to represent the legacy title that he's taking with him. So that was the new news coming out of this, the new twist. Again, very Cena-centric, very much about Cena and the fans, having nothing to do with Cody or The Rock, or providing us with additional context. But Bruce, that was an added twist. We'll get to the big picture about the show and how you felt about it and everything else, but I want to focus on the Cena promo here in Block A. So what do you think about the Cena promo? I know you're kind of saying it felt like a rerun like the rest of the show. That's kind of the context of you bringing that up.
Yeah, so sorry about that to begin with.
It's okay. You're good.
Then not sure what I missed, but to me, I did like how, again, Cody brought it back to himself. He was short and sweet like he was last time. Though, again, nothing. I guess we have a true mission statement from Cena that he wants to take the belt and retire with it. I was hoping that when he said that, because he brought up the spinner belt, that he was going to bring back the spinner belt as kind of a further mockery of what he sees as the toy belt or whatever. I just got a chuckle out of that. And I was 2005. I was right in the thick of high school, so I thought the spinner belt was pretty cool. And I was one of the ones with the Dada C4s, like the Chris Webbers. I had friends with the Dada spinner rim shoes and everything. So I mean, that time we were all, it was that time, right? So we thought it was pretty cool to have that. And to Cena's credit, it didn't end with him, right? Randy Orton kept it. CM Punk used it. Edge used it. Like it didn't just start and stop with Cena as a spinner belt. So they had it for a while. It wasn't just a small time thing.
Yeah.
But I'm a bit. So if you go back to last week, I thought Cena was a bit gaslighting in his comments, because a lot of what he was saying to the fans, I felt like he was trying to say to Vince to a certain extent, because a lot of like, you wanted me to be this, and when I was this, I was, all these different things that really felt like it was him responding to how Vince McMahon wanted him to be portrayed throughout the 20 years, essentially, that he was on top.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's how I took it, right? And so today he's coming in blaming the fans for everything. And again, it goes back to what you were saying. When did you start blaming the fans for everything? And it seemed like what he was saying, it goes back to the very beginning. Because when I was this, you cheered. When I was this, you were apathetic. When I was, he said when I was bland, essentially, you were apathetic. And when I was loyal and all these different things. And then he said when I do when I speak in a harmonic tone, you say, and he goes, it's just too easy, right? So I feel like a lot of these things is sort of the low-hanging fruit aspect of it, and it's not the crux that we need to really bite into this. It's a big match, don't get me wrong. And for the casuals, it's probably fine. For us, where we watch this every week and we are not casuals, we understand the stories, we understand their histories, we want to know more. And, maybe for Cena, he could tie it back to the Firefly Funhouse match and just how Bray Wyatt took him through a mental journey that made him reestablish who he was in himself, right. All these different things, right? Yeah. But, it's just, to me, it was running in place today. And I really hope that next week in London, it's not the same. Cena comes out, he belittles the fans. Cody comes out, he's a savior. I will say, Cody taking offense, not the offense to being attacked and betrayed, but offense to how he talked about the title, is pure wrestling white meat babyface. Good for Cody doing that tonight. That was just, it's not necessarily about me. I'm defending the company, I'm defending the title, the prestige of that. What you did to me, I can look past that. It's logically, it's dumb, but in a wrestling sense, it's perfect for a babyface to do that. So there's that. But I hope next week it's more than just what they did tonight.
And I think what we're seeing with Cody is he's having to sit around a bunch of big self-centered egos who are doing their kind of self-centered, I have other words in mind, promos. And he's got to sit there and watch until they're finished. And then he's got to clean up with some comments that include him in the storyline in a way that protects the integrity of his character, everything he's built with fans, and everything that full time has led to a WWE boom period that both Dwayne "The Rock" Final Boss Johnson and John Cena are completely oblivious to or ignoring or resentful of. And it's irritating. And, from a casual fan standpoint, I think it affects them too. I think casual fans are watching this going, wait, when I was 7 or when I was 14, Cena hated me or not? Like, that's not a small detail. Cena's been in movies. He's been in, TV series that are well scripted. That's a plot hole. That's just distracting, I think, even casual fans. When Cena came out and he stared at that kid, and the kid is like, hi, can you wave at me? Or maybe I'm an exception to the rule of all the people you hate. And Cena stared at him, and I got a kick out of that because, deep down, Cena might be going, oh, God, this is actually affecting real people. But he didn't flinch, and that's good. But that kid's probably wondering, did you like me last year? Were you cool with me 3 years ago when I first discovered you? Like, that's not there. And I do think it's affecting how immersed casual fans can be in this. And if you're a casual fan, you're also paying attention as much as we are, even if they're not sitting here watching post shows and analyzing it, thinking, wait, didn't Cena sell the soul to The Rock? Like, I don't think you have to be a hardcore fan. I think you're even more so a casual fan going, what about The Rock? This is, like, I don't think they get off the hook because, well, we're just nitpicking. I think these are, like, really big issues. And if I'm Cody, I'm just like, can I get an opponent who, like, understands that I'm the top star in this industry right now and maybe try not to ruin it, step on it, and derail it, or in Cena's case, ignore it? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, he's like, I'm here. I'm drawing money. We're selling out. We're running 2 stadium shows per night, and I'm the top guy during this era of international growth. And the two of the top stars of the previous 2 eras can't be bothered. Let me take a deep breath, and let's pause. Let's introduce the show. Bruce.
Like Xavier Woods said to Adam Pearce, take your blood pressure medication.
Exactly. Yep. And by the way, Pearce was terrible this week, and I'll get into that. I love Pearce until this week. This was cartoonish, over the top melodrama. He was produced. I don't know. There's something going on with the jet lag or the travel. So I'll maybe get to that later in the show, but they need to dial that back too. This is the worst week for him. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show covering Monday Night Raw live on Netflix on March 24th, 2025. And I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher, and founder of the long-running Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter, which predates the Spinner Belt, by the way. You can read what I wrote about the Spinner Belt as a VIP member, pwtorch.com/govip. We've got all our contemporaneous coverage week by week, starting in the late 1980s, of every major story that's happened in professional wrestling. And as a VIP member, you can dive into those back issues and read about every major WWE event, WCW, the Monday Night Wars, the launch of TNA, I mean, everything, the whole ROH era. Heck, when we started, there were territories, and we were covering them in the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. So check it out. You can get a full VIP membership with access to those back issues, pwtorch.com/govip. Sign up with credit card, debit card, PayPal, or sign up through Patreon or your Apple account. All instructions laid out there for different tiers and price points and benefits. pwtorch.com/govip. And I say that because your assignment is look up what we were saying about the Spinner Belt when it debuted, if you want to go back into those archives. But we're here to talk Monday Night Raw. We are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's not quite evening because we're watching it here in the United States in the afternoon. Is it even afternoon yet in Hawaii, Bruce?
It's 12:45, so we just
That's amazing.
But the show started at 10. Last week it was 9, and next week it'll be 9. Yep. Luckily, Monday's my work from home day, so I'm able to catch them. And today I had a day off at least. So yeah, but I don't mind the earlier start time, to be honest, because I have the rest of my day to do stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if this was like June, I'd be kind of upset because I like getting out in the afternoons. Actually, I went out for a hike today earlier in the afternoon, but I still had to wear a jacket. But if it was like super nice and it's like breaks in, in Minnesota, you take the nice days and you seize them. We seize them. That's why we have the best park system and the best bike trails on the continent, because we eat up our 5 months of really good weather. All right. So anyway, let's back to introducing the show here. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday covering Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. We're live on YouTube on the PWTorch channel. You can find a link to those shows in my TV reports at pwtorch.com. I do detailed write-ups on Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We also have live pay-per-view and PLE coverage at pwtorch.com. And on Tuesday nights, we've got NXT coverage. Thursday nights, Impact coverage, along with Collision coverage on the weekend. So we got the major TV shows covered. I do my write-ups on the PLEs and the Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows, and our team covers the other ones. And speaking of our team, Bruce Hazelwood, a longtime member of the PWTorch contributors, formerly with PWT Talks NXT. Bruce, it is great to have you back in the host chair once again. There was a long gap, but this gap since the last time wasn't so long. Good to talk Raw with you.
Yeah, I wonder if it's even been a month since the last time after a couple of years. So it's good. And yes, I am in lovely Honolulu, where unlike your 3 to 6 months of great weather, we pretty much have 12 months of great weather a year, which is very nice. And yeah, I started out doing Raw coverage during the pandemic, which was a trudge, to say the least. Then I shifted to NXT for a couple years, and that was right before and then during the transition to 2.0. So again, another trudge. But I went to grad school, which was another trudge. So I'm used to working through the muck and getting at the end, more polished like a diamond. So here I am. And thank you for having me again, Wade.
And you were a Torch VIP member, subscriber for a long time before that too.
I think I'm coming up on a decade. I think something like that.
Yep. So it's great to have you on. By the way, speaking of which, we're always interested in new people joining the team. Some people are with us for a very, very long time. As contributors, other people do it for a while and then they get to a different stage or different time, have different time in their lives. But we'd welcome you applying to be a volunteer. You can contribute with, we generally like people to do written reports for PWTorch as kind of part of the process, but you can put in some time and end up participating in other ways, like on this post show. If you're interested in columns, weekly features, live TV coverage, we have openings pretty much always. They're on the staff page link at pwtorch.com if you want to take a look. Or you can just email me, kellerwade@proton.me. That's kellerwade@proton.me. And let me know if you're interested in joining the team. And like I said, that can blossom into other things, such as what Bruce is doing here on our Raw post show. You can participate live in our chat. If you're watching us live, join in on the chat. We'll bring some comments up about the Cena promo in a moment. From what I saw, the chat's agreeing with our assessment, Bruce, and some of my points in particular when I brought them up initially. And so we welcome you to join in the chat if you're watching us live and haven't yet. You can also email the show at wadekellerpodcast@proton.me. That's wadekellerpodcast@proton.me. And we'll keep an eye on the inbox and read emails. That's a way, especially if you don't watch us live, and you can't be in the chat, you can still get on the show and then listen later to on the podcast side of things or on demand on YouTube. Speaking of the podcast, search Wade Keller on your podcast app and you can get the audio version of this. I know it's easier for a lot of you with Apple CarPlay, Android Audio, walking around with your smartphone with your earbuds in and listening to podcasts. And the way to do that is search Wade Keller and subscribe to both the red logo and the blue logo shows that pop up. The Blue Logo Show is our main podcast feed, which includes the flagship every week, along with interviews, pay-per-view previews, and flashbacks. And the Red Logo Show are our post shows, which also includes content not on YouTube. So you'll definitely want to subscribe to those in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right. And while you're at it, search PWTorch and subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast, which includes the aforementioned NXT post show and a different show each day of the week, different themes, a WWE show, the PWTorch 90s Pastcast, looking back at speaking of those newsletters, an old Pursing Torch newsletter from 30 years ago that week, and shows dedicated to other specific themes and topics. All right, Bruce, let's get back to the conversation on the Cena promo, and I want to get into the chat. Zach Barber super chatted. By the way, super chats are welcome. We appreciate those. Zach says, somehow Cena was even worse this week. The cadence, the focus on the fans, and still no Dwayne. This felt like a performance, not a promo. And I believe he added afterwards, he said, Cena doesn't understand how retiring with the title works. The title would just be vacated. Zach, I'll push back on that. There's logic in that. Cena's just going, if I retire with the title, no one will have the satisfaction of beating me. So you're going to have to introduce a new belt. It will have no lineage, no history. And he's saying that will ruin pro wrestling. Ironic, considering WWE's done that many times voluntarily. Eric Bischoff handing Triple H belt. The other world title, by the way, that the Gunther is holding, kind of demeaning to that. Cena just sort of trampling over other things that matter in WWE without regard. But the the cadence this week, Bruce, and people can take this how they want, reminded me of Jeff Jarrett after a heel turn. You fans, let me insult you, and you were saying that
Slap
about
nuts.
me. Yeah, the cadence, it didn't feel special to me. Like I do have to say, like last week was sort of shocking, like, oh, Cena, and he's it's Cena, his facial expressions are going to be cartoonish, but I thought he was taking it seriously. I thought there's some gaps, but the crowd is reacting real negatively. And I thought, okay, this is chapter 1. Let's see if they have more than one idea in mind. Bruce, as you said, it doesn't seem like they had more than one idea in mind. This is just a little addition to it, going, I'm going to retire with the title. That's not enough to make up for him. Otherwise, kind of largely repeating himself.
Yeah, Zach in the chat is saying he said he would take the title home with him, which is essentially the same thing, right? So normally I don't agree with Zach when it comes to his AEW opinions, but I do agree that with Cena's promo here, because like I said about earlier when he was talking about, I say it in a harmonic rhythm and you say, and the crowd said, what? It's like, it's just too easy. It felt like more of him trying to show that, hey, I went to Hollywood. I know how to act now. Look at this. I can do all this and put you in the palm of my hand, yada, yada, yada. This isn't the John Cena promo. Oh, hey, buddy. This isn't the John Cena that gave those promos in, even just 10 years ago. And I know it's a different time, but the John Cena loved him or hated him, like he said the words and you believed what he was saying, and it felt more passionate and authentic than this tonight. Like it seemed again like a repeat of last week, aside from adding the bit about the toy title and the spinner belt, right? So I've seen better acting from my dog trying to get a treat, right? So it's not like
that's not acting.
I mean, true.
He really wants a treat.
But, and I guess that's where the difference comes in, right? That there was more authenticity to what my dog is doing, trying to get that treat, than Cena out here doing a sing-songy promo that we normally criticize Charlotte Flair for doing all the time, right? So, to me, it wasn't a good look for Cena. It was saved a bit by Cody being so passionate and fire, and again doing those babyface things. But again, to me, it felt a little bit like they're running in place, and they really just did not know where they wanted to go after they took The Rock out of the equation.
So, as a counterpoint, to a degree, to my point about how Cena's ignoring Cody, Derek Hubbard says, last week was more about Cena's grievances. This week was more about Cody and the belt. We still await the Rock element. The pacing is effectively giving nuggets without big bites. Yes and no. Mostly no, Derek. Last week was about Cena's grievances with the fans. This week was 90%, 80% about Cena's grievances with the fans. It wasn't about Cody. Cody is a black outline of a person a generic person who happens to be holding the title. Nothing about what Cena has said yet has anything to do with Cody. It's all stuff that predates Cody. Cody just happens to be the champion. If Seth Rollins was a champion, would have been the same promo. If Gunther was a champion, it'd be the same promo. If CM Punk was a champ, if whatever, point made. We still await the Rock element. I don't know if we're going to get that. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. But the pacing is effectively giving nuggets without big bites. That's what I was an advocate for last week. I'm acknowledging I'm retiring with the belt, and him claiming that's going to ruin the lineage, but we've had belts merged and split and created. It's not like there's some wholesome Bruno Sammartino through line with one championship that Cena's going to wreck. That's the spirit of it. You can get technical and go, well, who's retired with the belt? The point is this is not a title with uninterrupted pure lineage because of titles being split and retired and merged and all that stuff. So I don't know, Derek. I disagree. I think your framing is generous, especially in implying that this wasn't about Cena's grievances this week like it was last week. When it comes to fans, it was. And it was not more about Cody and the belt. It was more about the belt for sure. And I'm glad. Him saying, and one other thing he added this week, which is kind of part of that, is I'm going to become 17-time champion, and then I'm going to, overtake Ric Flair. But I really don't think 2025's wrestling audience, Bruce, is all that wrapped up in thinking about Ric Flair, and I don't consider that like this big heel talking point to go, oh, you don't get to. I mean, yes, in 1988 or 1991, maybe 1997. No, that's not. That's kind of living in the past. It feels a little oblivious, especially when you have a guy who's drawn bigger crowds than Ric Flair ever did repeatedly. In the case of Cody headlining shows, you're just ignoring.
Yeah, going back to your point about this company and the titles and ruining wrestling and whatnot. Let's not forget they literally split in half the women's championship at one point. Had one half held by one person, the other half held by another person, right? So these things happen in this company a lot. Now, I will, just to play devil's advocate to Derek's point here, I want to give them a little bit I want to have a little optimism, because I felt the same way about this segment and the Rhea, Io, Bianca segment that I did with Jay and Gunther, but they switched it up this week a little bit, right? It wasn't just they won the match, Jay gets choked out by Gunther, here we go. They added to it, right? And I know we'll get to the match later, but they added a little more to it. And that's a way of having your pacing without doing the same thing over and over again. And, that was the worry we had with Jay and Gunther being such a long program. We have the same thing here with Cody and with John. We have the same thing with Bianca, Io, and Rhea, and how they're trying to get there. I feel like there are too many similarities in these, not just the fact that they're all trying to extend these stories so long to WrestleMania, but within each story in a microcosm, they're repeating the same things over and over again. And that is just not a good look. And one thing we always talk about, you and I, and just you and everybody else that comes to the torch and contributes, whether we're talking about WWE, whether we're talking about AEW, you need to have some quality control in that you can't have the same things happening on a week-to-week basis, but on a segment-to-segment basis as well, right? So we're having so many of these things happening repeatedly that it kind of, like today, I felt like usually the matches aren't what draw me to wrestling. I'm going to find good matches wherever I turn to. But tonight, I was really invested with the fact that we were going to see Dragon Lee versus Chad Gable. I'm sorry. Grande Americano. And then that we had Penta Breaker. Like, I was really looking forward to those matches more so than what happened throughout the night leading up to those matches, because it just felt so meh, right? And if next week, like you said, they have a chance to better the storyline by adding tweaks to it. So it seemed like after the second or third week with Jay and Gunther, they made that switch tonight. Maybe next week they'll make the switch to those other two storylines. But right now, I'm not seeming too hopeful. And the thing about The Rock is The Rock will come back into it if he does when The Rock wants to come back into it. Not when Cody or John or Paul want him to come back, but when The Rock wants to come back. So that's another issue that I think as fans, we need to take The Rock out of it, because it's not up to us or them. It's up to him.
And do you think Rock fits in this at this point? I mean, because I think there's. I agree with you. Like, I'm fine with Rock not being out of it. I have mixed feelings about him not being brought up, because it's like, yeah, it's a loose storyline that should be addressed, but nobody wants to upset The Rock, so you're just better off not talking about him, because Rock has power and influence and can wave his magic board member wand and sabotage things or undercut you. So people just don't want to mention his name, which is a weird world to live in if you're Dwayne Johnson, that people are that scared of you and you're that seen as that unstable. It's weird. So I'm sort of glad. Just don't bring up The Rock. We don't need to hear about him. But that said, I think they could. I mean, Rock could show up and go, Cena, you sold your soul to me. That could be a window into possibly Cena turning babyface again. Is Rock, when Rock reappears, he's the heel. But that's way down the road. And we've got an email in the mailbag we'll get to, and we'll save it for then to cover the possible. What do we know after 2 weeks about Cena's window to turn babyface again? But let's save that. Let's go back to the chat here regarding Cena and Cody. Four Eyes Malone says, you're right, Wade. In my opinion, Wade, Cena isn't getting to Cody at all, and it's in a bad way. Darrell Freeman says, I was cool with them trying to lay out Cena promos, setting up the story week to week, but they have had a bad outline on how to forward the storyline at a good pace. And then Derek Mitchell says, hey, Wade, I agree with you about your sentiment about John Cena's second heel promo. He's unpacking his feelings without acknowledging his opponent, Cody. Jack Reeves said, has Cena actually said anything to Cody's face since the turn, or just stared at him like a betrayed lover? And Adam Kidd just said, yeah, I called him kid last week. That's about it. So some chat comments. Nick the Neen says, Cena already ruined wrestling from 2005 to 2015. So yeah, I mean, there is that. Cena's promising to do something. Some would say he long ago did, and it was thanks in part to Cody, Roman Reigns, others, that it got rehabilitated. What about this question from Lee? I still think the fact that Cody comes out to full entrance takes away from the anger that he should be fueling to a hero betraying him and the fans. He comes out just to chat. Let's talk about Cody for a second. I said, he's waiting to the end. Then he's kind of getting his, saying what he feels he can say while being politically safe and drawing attention back to him and the bond he has with the fans. But is Cody coming out to his full entrance? I was critical of Cody last week because last week he said, "Oh, I wanted to hear you out." It's like, I'm sorry, if someone attacks me with a watch and a belt and kicks me, I'm kind of past the let me hear out. Maybe you have a good reason for this brutal attack that left me bloodied and maybe concussed. I thought that was out of step with, again, a lot of things are out of step with what happened at Elimination Chamber in that segment, ignoring The Rock, one of them, and now this aspect of it. So I didn't like that. I didn't like that Cody's like, well, I want to hear you out. But that shows, I think that's emblematic of a sort of demeanor that Cody's had, Bruce, so far, which is trying to be above it. But I kind of I'm missing this aspect of Cody looking at Cena and seeming like there is some sort of emotional reaction to it. Last week he said, I traveled with you. I want to wrestle the old Cena, not whoever you are. I mean, there's some of that, but even in the lead up to Cena's promo last week after the Chamber, we didn't get, like, Cody was just sort of like in this narrow emotional range. Like he's not showing a strong reaction to it. And I think it's dampened because people look to him as a proxy for how they should feel. And I think it's sort of dampened the rage. And so I think what Lee is pointing out here adds to that, which is, Cody's coming out slapping hands. Everything's just normal. Things are just normal. How do you feel, Bruce, about that?
I wonder if this is, again, related to the point about pacing, and it's going to build and build to a point where Cody's eventually going to erupt and go at Cena. Now, I'm not saying they should do this because I feel like if I was betrayed like that and attacked that viciously, I wouldn't come out to my entrance and just go to the ring and grab a microphone and talk to you. I would have gone to the ring and slapped you in the face and then gone from there, right? So, and I feel like how Cody has presented himself as a babyface and as a champion, he would have been right to do that, and the fans would have been behind him for doing that because also of how much betrayal they felt from John Cena doing what he did after 22 years. Because I think the last time he was a heel was 2003 when he faced The Undertaker in a main event at the was it Armageddon was a SmackDown only pay-per-view, kind of like his make it or break it moment, and which we'll talk about someone else later that I think had a make it or break it moment, kind of treading water instead. Different segment, but to me, Cody coming out to his entrance, I understand why they do it, especially at an international audience. They want those visuals, they want the sounds, they want to be able to play that for every single audience they provide. But again, if you just look at it logically, which in wrestling is a very, 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 very difficult endeavor to do, because if you do that, you're just going to tie yourself into knots and then nothing's going to make sense. He shouldn't just come out and he shouldn't just pander to the crowd. He should come out there looking. I'm going to relate this back to what you always say about Bianca Belair. He needs to come out looking serious instead of out there with the title, doing the whoa, clapping hands with the fans, like Bianca going out there with her hair twirling. He needs to come out there looking serious, walking down to the ring, going to Cena's face and getting into him and saying why. Because I don't think Cena we know he wants the title. We get that. And to go back to a point that Zach's brought up when we said we don't need The Rock in here and that The Rock started it, as long as Cena mentions why he chose to go with The Rock and betray Cody, we don't need The Rock back because Cena's addressed why The Rock was even involved in the first place, right? Once we get that actual why, you want the title, okay, but why did you go through The Rock to get the title when you were the last two in the Elimination Chamber already? You probably could have won even if that didn't help you, right? There are just too many logical gaps for me to really let this pass without Cena making that definitive connection as to the actual crux of the decision to make himself a heel and betray Cody. Yeah.
All right, a couple other chats, and we'll get to calls. By the way, if you're a VIP member or Patreon supporter, there's a link in my TV report at PWTorchVIP.com. That's our ad-free website with bonus content for our full VIP members. You can also, as a Patreon supporter, find a link to be a video caller on the show also. Before we get to our video calls, Gave29 says the Cena turn actually overshadowed Cody's awesome rebuttal, Rock's proposition when he told Rock to go F himself. It's almost old news now, but that got a huge crowd pop and a memorable moment. Yeah, you know what? I mean, I think that's actually a good point. We're doing the same thing that Gabe is pointing out. Understandably so. You know, I'm not throwing us under the bus. WWE's completely focused right now on Cena and his heel turn and the fans. And it should be. I'd be mad if one of the things I liked about the promo last week with Cena is what I don't like about it in the proportion of what it's taking up at the exclusion of other things I think should be included. But I think was essential for Cena in his heel turn to bring up the fans being so polarized in their reaction to him. He was a polarizing figure, and I like that he addressed both the people cheering him and booing him over the years. I think, you don't want to make it seem like, are you on Team Cena or not? This isn't Bret Hart, Team Canada, Team USA when he turned heel. He doesn't want anyone cheering for him. And those who were cheering for me, you used me. Those who were booing me, screw you. I like that aspect. I mean, of course, a Cena heel turn should be driven based on built-up resentment, but it's sloppy. When did that resentment start? When did it boil over? What triggered you turning? And why are you ignoring The Rock? And that gets to the point in the chat. Shouldn't the announcers be congratulating Cody for turning down The Rock? Or is everybody so glad that Dwayne The Rock Johnson is gone and not meddling? They don't want to tempt fate by even bringing his name up. And they're minimizing it. I mean, it does feel like, oh, thank God he left the room. Now we can go on with the party we were having before he showed up and everybody was on edge going, oh, God, this guy's here. That's the vibe you get. But it is a pretty important plot point, Bruce, that they're not talking about Cody saying F you to The Rock. I assume they'll circle back at some point for it, and they see it's not germane to Hyping Mania. But, I mean, sensibly speaking, that should still be a talking point last week, if not this week, at least last week.
Yeah. So when I taught undergrads for about 5 years, and I would, grade their essays and their papers, I'd always be like, y'all are good at the who, what, or you're good at the who, what, when, and the where. But what you really need to do is give me the how and the why. And right now we have the how, which is he partnered with The Rock, but we don't have that why. And that why is crucial to any story. And going back to Darrell's point about an outline, it seems like they either had an outline that just copy and pasted and didn't edit, or an outline that had the first part done and the rest of the body is still missing. And so what we need to figure out, or what they need to figure out, is we have 6 weeks until Mania? No, less than that, right? So
26 days, yeah.
26 days, so about 4 weeks. In those next 3 or 4 Raws, how are you going to pace it out well, but also make sure that you have enough new and intriguing story points, but that also address the why, the context for everything that has happened thus far between these two. And if you can't do that, I don't care about the Mania match, honestly. Right? Well, whether Cody wins or Cena wins, I really don't care. If Cena gets his 17th title, great for him. We all know that if we go back and count Flair's actual titles, it's something, I think, more than 16 that are but there's officially 16 that are recognized. Cena has 16 that are recognized. At this point, after about 2003, I didn't care about how many title reigns you had anymore because of how often the titles went back and forth. It didn't mean anything. So when JBL, as much as I didn't like him as a wrestler, said, I just want to have one long reign instead of 10 different reigns, I understood that perspective because that stands out more than Charlotte Flair's 14 reigns. Because honestly, I can't tell you much about any of her reigns aside from maybe when she lost it to Rhea Ripley or one of the matches to Sasha. I can't really tell you any of that, but I know JBL had the title for about a year.
Yes, and JBL's old school. I mean, he grew up in the territory days, and he saw how valuable it was when every wrestling fan could recite the city, the date, the context of every world title change, every intercontinental title change, I could go on about but the major titles, it was a big deal when they changed hands. And as a fan, I could tell you every NWA world title change, every WWF world title change, every AWA world title change, going back kind of to their origin. I mean, I know there was less history then than now, but all the repeated title changes was an undisciplined booking, sparked by the Monday Night Wars and desperation to make news and try to have a buzz. And then people just continued on with it who didn't know any better. As we talked about for decades, this was some really, really bad booking in the aftermath and hangover of the Monday Night Wars that went on from people who thought that's how wrestling works. I cite this. There was an article written in some corporate magazine at the time, I can't remember if it was Forbes or Sports Illustrated or somebody, but they're like, the opening line was, as we all know, pro wrestling TV shows are built around a GM introducing the show. And no, that what? We don't all know that. That is not true. You have not been watching wrestling very long. You think you have, but you haven't. And that is a new thing. And it's something we're trying to get rid of, which thankfully mostly we have. So there are people who watch wrestling for a few years and think they know everything about everything that's ever happened. And there were people actually in positions of power who thought, well, title changes just happen all the time because everybody deserves a gold watch. If they get cheered and they're over and they main event, you got to give them a world title reign or it's insulting. Plus, it pops ratings. Okay.
Hey, wait.
That's a side rant. I don't want to go down that road too much.
In the 80s, what was the shortest world championship reign for Terry Bollea?
Oh, good question. I don't know. Right.
I'm assuming like 3 years probably the shortest reign, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not that far removed. We're 40 years removed from when title reigns were usually multi-year things.
Oh,
I mean,
that's why
that's why with Roman holding the title for as long as he did, I loved it. Even though the matches got repetitive, I liked the fact that the title was still held in permanence, right? We go back to NXT. The women's title for so long was always held for so long by people that were kind of the fulcrum of the show, not just the division. So Asuka's undefeated streak that went a year and a half, her holding the title and really raising the title of the prestige of that title again. I mean, these are the things that I think pro wrestling fans sometimes get lost of for the instant gratification of seeing a title change, especially if you're alive. I understand that is amazing to see a title change, even if it's an independent wrestling title change, because I've seen those too, and I was really hyped to see them, right? But in the long run, what does going 3 months with one title holder and 3 months with another, how does that actually establish that title as prestigious, more so than maybe the competition isn't actually at the level to hold a world title? If that makes sense of what I'm saying.
Yeah. And there I'm not against a short title reign now and then either, because it adds unpredictability. Like if you go, well, every title reign has to be 1,400 in some days, like Hogan's longest title reign. Well, that then when someone wins a title, everyone goes, okay, well, I don't get to see a title change for another 2 years or 3 years. Like, you don't want to do that. It's okay to have a quick one now and then. But this idea that everybody gets a turn with the belt and you do rapid fire changes and sometimes hot shot it on TV, that's the part that diminishes their value over time. Getting back to the chat, Jack Reeves said, I think even though I don't like the full entrance when angry at someone this week, I took it to be, I'm here for you fans, even though Cena's against you now. I don't necessarily like it, but I think Jack is kind of putting in context. And I like to do that in my analysis is what's in the mind of the person doing it, or the person who told the person what to do, and the booker, what's their point, that, and then try to give them, understand what they were thinking when they did it and evaluate it, and don't discard that. And I don't think that's without merit. That Cody sort of going, I'm not going to let Cena take away from you fans here that, in Glasgow, you don't see us all the time. I want to give you the full entrance and slapping hands and smiling. I'm not going to let Cena take that away. Now, Lee counters and says, if he did the entrance and then just walked in the ring and punched Cena, then that would have made a bit of sense. And there is something about, like sort of a physical FU that, Cena gave Rock the verbal one, give Cena the physical one. Now they're saving contact. And there's certain, Bruce, that was a big thing for so long. Don't let there be physical interaction with wrestlers until you get to the pay-per-view. Make people pay to see it. JC Scooby says, I'm over this Cody Cena Mania match. I don't care about either of them. This is a hot mess. Derek Mitchell says, I don't mind that Cody doesn't have anger. We've seen The Rock get hit by a semi-truck by Hulk Hogan to later pose after their match and be in multiple tag matches against Hall and Nash. So Derek, one thing,
different character.
Well, I'll say this. Derek should know this if you listen to me a lot, Bruce. One thing that is like a top pet peeve of mine is when people say, I'm going to rationalize something that is counterproductive today because really bad booking decisions were made in the past that I can recall that were just as bad or worse. No, bad booking decisions in the past does not justify and should not excuse bad booking decisions today. Well, I left my dog out all night in 10 degree below weather, but my gosh, I did that six times in the last 10 years, and my neighbor does it all the time too. No, it's wrong to do. It doesn't matter if it's been done before and wrestling survived or the dog survived. Like, come on, you can do. I don't. Maybe you meant something different by that, but you can do. Or maybe you're being sarcastic. I don't know. But that happens sometimes, Bruce, where people go, well, how can you be against burning a house down angle when Kane did this and Randy Orton did that? It's like, well, those were dumb too. And if you read my back issues or listen to old podcasts, I ranted about those too. Precedent does not justify continuation.
I just go back to you always bring it up. Scott Hall. Is that realistic? Can you actually kill somebody in a wrestling arena?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you probably could, but you go to jail, right? I mean, you wouldn't, depending on. Okay.
Yeah.
We've seen some deaths in the ring recently. I shouldn't say that, especially over the weekend. Another independent wrestler died. Another one died a couple weeks ago. If you were the one to actually go and commit the murder, commit the death by doing that, yeah, you, as you say in promos, there wouldn't be anything left, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it has to be a little bit of realism to what you're doing. And then going back to your point about saving the contact, you can save the full out brawl until, maybe the go home show, but just give me something to latch onto, Cody, that lets me know that what he did to you, what The Rock and Cena did to you and betraying you, impacted you to a certain extent, because again, in your promo, you said that you didn't care about that. You cared that Cena criticized the belt, criticized the title, right? How can you not take someone beating you down like that, getting a contusion to your eye from Travis Scott too, and then not feel like there's any repercussion that needs to be paid, right? I'm just trying to I want something from Cody to show me that he's not necessarily a pushover, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then to the point about like The Rock and Hogan back in the day, The Rock and Cena are even The Rock during that time and Cody, they're very different characters in how they portray those characters, right? If this was Stardust, sure, but he wouldn't be a WWE champion if he was still Stardust. That would be more of a comparison, I think, with what happened then. Like, because The Rock, even then, was a bit more, because he was getting toward the end of it. It was 2002 when he had that match with Hogan at WrestleMania. He was still getting more toward that more playing toward the comedic end of things because he was heading toward Hollywood after that. And so, to me, I think the comparison is a bit facetious at best, and what's the term I'm looking for? At worst, kind of like a false narrative at worst to try and
spurious.
Yeah, there we go. It's spurious because they're two completely different contexts and situations and characters. And The Rock was not the champion when he faced Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania. Here, Cody is not just a WWE champion; he is the top star on your company, of your whole company, and they're marketing him as such. So, I need there to be a little more realism in the response from Cody to what happened to him at Elimination Chamber.
Yep. Mark Piscetti says Cody's response tonight takes the steam out of the feud. This should feel heated. It doesn't. How can they get that back at this point?
Slap him.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, Cody can cut a solo promo and it's not, it probably won't happen before next Monday, but they could have him do a solo promo on Raw next week before, and then Cena can interrupt him, I guess. But Cody can actually get fired up and go, listen, you're going to have to beat me to do what you're claiming you're going to do. And you're not going to beat me, but screw you. If you beat me and you want to take the title and go on with it, screw you. And then rebut him. Go, these fans who you say we're taking from you, I've seen your lifestyle. I've seen the fame it's brought you. Screw you. You're ungrateful. The fact is you're, a 50-ish-year-old guy going through some midlife crisis, and now all these kids who looked up to you and bought your mansion with your cut of merchandise and ticket sales, now you're breaking their heart, and you're doing it for reasons out of your own insecurity that you can't beat me. In fact, you can't even say my name. You can't even look at me. You can't acknowledge that while you were gone, when you left, you thought things will go down. And Cody can do this. He's telling people, I don't want to get all meta on you because the fans care about winning championships in the ring and how we win and how we retain the title. But I'll get a little meta. We're doing really good without you. In fact, by any comparable apples to apples metric, we're drawn better than you. Fans like me more than they liked you back then. It's not just in the lack of polarizing chants. It's because I'm not as weird as you were. I'm not walking around in jorts way past their due date. Like, there's things to be said here. And you know what's, I mean, again, I say this, I'm not in the business of cutting promos for wrestlers. They're the professionals, and we get to see the end product. And I know I said it last week, there's many, many ways that Cena's first heel promo could go and it would work. There's many ways to do a storyline. That's why, the term fantasy booking is sort of a derisive term, and deservedly so, because anybody can, book a storyline without regard to all the realities that come with it, what's coming next, the politics. And the fact is sometimes there's many good ideas. Some good ideas can be executed poorly, like we've seen with a brand split. It's a good idea, executed poorly, often. And then there's bad ideas that might be okay because performance is save it. So the whole thing about let me create some fictionalized vision of what I want, I don't like to go down that road. But I'm throwing for the sake of illustrative purposes that there are things for Cody to say here that I think would just get the crowd to basically be standing and giving him a standing ovation by the end. And that it is a T-balled up. It's not a slow pitch. It's just right there on the tee. He can swing and hit that thing, and he should. don't. And if Cena's like, oh, I got to prove everything, and I think that doesn't work for me, brother. If he goes down the Hogan road, that sucks. There's good stuff here for Cody to do, to stand up to the fans and also kind of call him out for going, why won't you talk about me or look at me? I'm not generic champion 2025. I'm Cody frickin' Rhodes. And I'm going to
Jack Swagger.
And I'm going to kick your ass at WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you suck. The fans have been right all along. Look, I don't know. And, and Stay's like, oh, you're not the same Cena. And I want to face the old Cena. It's like, really? Well, but there's so much more here, and they're not doing it. It's, all right. We could read more chats, and we will, Bruce, but I want to get to our callers. Go ahead, though, if you got something you want to sneak in quick.
Just real quick, I think a good thought experiment for you and Rich, probably on everything, plug for VIP, is to kind of just talk through what would have happened if AEW didn't exist and Cody didn't go through the growing pains he did as one of the top stars there, especially when it came to trying to bridge the meta with the actual pro wrestling world. And I don't know, because I feel like this would have been these last couple weeks would have been very different in a bad way. Even though we're nitpicking it a lot, I think it could have gone much more negatively had Cody not gone through those growing pains in AEW. Oh,
for sure. Yeah. I mean, we that's been brought up. I mean, it's Cody, and what if not for AEW, where would he be? It's a very relevant point. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that should be worked into this, because I don't know that AEW's far enough off.
Right. I'm talking more of like a meta discussion. There's kind of a thought experiment that's safe for a later time. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because we don't want our callers to be on hold for another hour, because you and I could, without even thinking, go down that road. What if Cody hadn't been there, and how valuable was it? I said I wanted to not do more chats, but I'll just throw this in. Forrest Malone said, unless I missed something, Cena hasn't mentioned how Cody has talked about wanting the Cena schedule. It seems like something easy to turn against Cody. I don't know. Has he said that in canon of the TV shows, or Four Eyes, are you pulling from? I mean, like, everybody wants a Cena schedule. You want to earn it. I don't know if Cody said that on TV. So, jump in because sometimes I hear things and I forget where I heard them too. But if it wasn't on the canon of the TV shows, Cody said shoulder content shouldn't be canon. It's only what counts is what's said on Raw and SmackDown. To a degree, what happens on the post shows, but not entirely.
Cody already got that tour bus that Cena likes, so he's working his way up there. Yeah,
well, he had a bus in AEW, and he told me, Wade, that was just for the reality show. Don't give me a hard time because I was repeating that people were critical of him. Not to pick at scabs here, but I'd reported that some wrestlers were like, we want, and there was a compliment to Cody. We want his leadership behind the scenes, and now he's got a bus, and we don't see him. And Cody's like, my locker room's open. But he had the same kind of group of young guys who looked up to him, and it was just that group. And Cody very much pushed back to me and just said, I take great pride in those young guys and mentoring them. But it was veterans who wanted Cody to be a leader, not just the young guys who are like, oh my God, I'm in the presence of royalty. Thank you for giving me free pizza. It was, I mean, I'm serious. Like that was a group, and Cody pointed to that. But the veterans wanted Cody to step up and be a leader. It wasn't really the thing for the Bucks. Certainly it's not Kenny's personality, and Tony Khan kind of needed someone else. And so it was a compliment to Cody, even though he was defended himself against the criticism and was not happy with my reporting on that. I was just conveying what I was hearing from a good number of wrestlers in AEW, what they were seeking from him. And then he got his bus, and then Cody told me, well, that's just for the reality show. And now he's in WWE, and they show him getting out of that bus, and I don't know that he's filming the same reality show. I know context changes, but I've brought that up before. There's a lot there. But anyway, as far as the stuff that Cody can say in his next promo, Goodfella1422 said, I'm with you, Wade. I like those thoughts. And Lee said, I just think as the biggest turn in 20 years and knowing there's a finite time for this to burn, they've handled this pretty poorly. And I mean, I think we're at a stage where that's a fair point of view to take without me pushing back like I did last week, going, let's give them a chance. They're going to, unveil this 1 week at a time. We got more to go. But Four Eyes, by the way, to answer my question, I'm pretty sure it's canon, Wade. He mentioned it, and also I believe Punk mentioned it when they had their back and forth about being tired and all that. Okay. Yeah, I know Punk was, when it seemed like, are they trying to lay the groundwork for Cena turning heel by saying, that he's, or not turning heel, but actually it was more just Punk going, you're vulnerable to losing because you're worn out, which could have been used to justify Cody turning. They didn't bring that up enough during the lead up to Cody's decision with Rock, and so that's when it sort of almost left canon because it was so obvious something to bring up. Cole could have said, the schedule's tough. sometimes you realize if you gain a certain amount of success and money, you want to be with your family. You don't want to get too detailed and go, that's like what Roman Reigns does in every contract negotiation. I want to be with my family. Because you want Cody's gimmick is he loves the fans and he loves being on the road, and he does. But that was one of Punk's sort of in canon arguments, as far as Malone says, to justify or to create a sense that maybe Cody was vulnerable to losing. They could have also used that a month later to say Cody is vulnerable to what Rock is offering him. Cole's talked peripherally around it, but didn't get too detailed. Okay, let's get to callers, and let's start with BJF. BJF, welcome to the show. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind about our discussion or other things on Raw tonight?
Hi, Wade and Bruce. Nice to meet you all.
Great to meet you. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, long-time VIP subscriber. Oh, sorry. Got a bit of a cold.
Sorry. Those aren't fun.
Yeah, so just a couple of things about the Cena promo. I liked when he talked about the kid from last week, who he said they got destroyed.
Yeah. You fans are awful. You're picking on this little kid, watching his video and laughing.
Well, exactly. He was picking on the kids for being hypocritical while being hypocritical in himself.
Right.
For making him cry in the first place. So I thought
copyright Drew McIntyre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the bit where he said, "I speak in rhythmic tones. You say what?" And everyone said what. So I always enjoy when someone shuts down, everyone saying what.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was Undertaker in the past saying, "Say what if you sleep with your sister," or The Miz saying, "You all sound like ducks." So I always enjoy that. I also thought when you talked about the cadence of John Cena, when I first started watching it on Netflix, I thought, is my Netflix playing up a bit? He's seeming quite slow. So it's quite interesting there.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I said you can, take it how you want, but it started to sound like Jeff Jarrett holding court in the ring for an 8-minute TNA promo about why the fans suck. And I mean, Jeff Jarrett is fundamentally sound, but there's something I don't know. I want to be self-aware when I say this, but there's something about the boss sometimes just going on and on and on and on, and no one's saying anything. And sometimes, that happens when you're a big star, and that happened with Dwayne Johnson, and then he got sort of, spin control at the presser afterwards, and Sam Roberts asked that question, and Rock starts, inventing some fake philosophy of heels and faces are passé, which is like he's just trying to make up for the fact that he tried to be a babyface and fans booed him, so now he's everything to all people and nothing to anyone. And then you got Cena, who's out there as this huge star turned heel and going on and on. And I mean, BJ, you bring up some additional things he did, but it felt to me the points you're bringing up, I mean, they're like clever, they're fine, but to me, like, it's at the expense of things that matter a lot more. And it's almost like Cena's like, oh, I got this idea, or someone says, hey, here's an idea for something you can say. But it's like, step back. What are the big, broad talking points that are going to drive and intensify this feud and lead to people going, I need to see this match. This feels bigger than any WrestleMania main event ever. And I'm, saying, fans are hypocrites for the social media kid thing. It's nice, but it shouldn't displace things that I think are a lot more important to the arc of this feud.
Yeah, fair point. I also thought that the promo itself was a bit of a holding place, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
And I said last week in the chat, I don't think they should have any physicality yet. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then second thing that I've got is about the Jay and Jimmy match.
Oh, yeah. Other things happened in 2.5 hours. Yeah.
Well, I thought that Jimmy coming out with Jay during the entrance was, considering it was in Scotland and there was rumours of Joe Hendry, I think if they'd had a sort of like little, like pause to say we've got someone, a surprise entrance coming out, I think the Scottish people would have been thinking, is it going to be Joe Hendry? So I liked that Jimmy came out with Jay, and so they all did the yeet. You all got the USO chants, and by the end of that, they forgot about who Joe Hendry is. So
that's an interesting point. I'm sure other people have been talking about it and been thinking, wait, what about, especially if we bring up the Usos? They did, and Jason Paul in his report over ProWrestling.net, I read, he's like, why did they hype a mystery partner? Just advertise the Usos are reuniting. And is the answer to that, they thought people would think that it was going to be Joe Hendry because of the context. Now, Bruce, what do you think about that?
Yeah, to be frank, even though I do love Joe Hendry and I was covering NXT when he was also doing his stuff there, I didn't even think about Joe Hendry for the show tonight until you brought it up, BJF. So to me, it seemed like Jimmy made the most sense. But if Jimmy made the most sense, as Jason Powell said, why did you not just advertise a reuniting of the two? Because even if it wasn't a tag match, all signs pointed to Jimmy interacting with Gunther somehow in between the WrestleMania match between Jay and Gunther. So it just seemed like the best way to do that would have had Tim just be advertised for the match tonight. So yeah, I don't know. But I think the issue is if you did want, so I know you're not saying he should have been it, but the thing is, if you did have Joe Hendry be the surprise opponent, it is really only for that Scotland crowd, and it wouldn't have any sort of bearing on the overall stories moving forward. Now, sometimes that is just fine to do the micro and treat the crowd right, but I think it would have been a mistake had they done it. I'm glad they went with Jimmy because it led to what's going to happen next week, and it led to that slap that, oh my gosh, he landed on Gunther today that I did a double take because it was loud. And that is the kind of stuff I want to see from Cody. I want that intensity that Jimmy showed to his brother and to Gunther today toward John Cena. Right? I get it. Jimmy has 1 week to do this and whatnot, so he has more time. But Cody needs to give us something to grab onto, right? And I know this is talking about Jimmy and Jay. Sorry to go back to Cody. It's just the parallels, right? So yeah.
And I think Jimmy and Jay teaming together is a big deal. I think it was good for Pat McAfee to say it's an honor to be present for the reuniting of the Usos. And they could have advertised that, and people would have been excited by it. And if there were people hoping for Joe Hendry, and they're sort of bummed to see the Usos reunite relative to it, that's bad. But it also could have been very localized. So yeah, I'm not sure if they gained anything from it, because they might have given some people some false hope while also failing to advertise something that I think the majority of people would be excited about. BJF, back to you.
Yeah, I don't think Joe Hendry would have made any sense whatsoever. So I just wondered why they hyped. Yeah, apart from the pop, obviously Jimmy made the more sense, and from what happened afterwards, maybe they could have had Joe Hendry do like a little backstage thing or something during the commercial breaks. But
you're muted, Wade.
Yeah, just do something before Raw goes on the air. Just a little personal local thing. Maybe he did, and I haven't seen a report. Yeah.
And then also on that point, what do you think about the slap to Jimmy and Gunther not retaliating? Do you think that was just Gunther being cool, calm, collected, waiting for next week to take his anger out on him, or should Gunther have just smashed him?
Well, the chat says, Goodfella1422 says, LOL, the slap was hard. TYS in the chat said, that slap to Gunther hit so hard it got Gunther staring right into the cam in shock. And TYS says, yeah, the slap was so hard it had Gunther thinking his name was Walter again. Yeah, it was a stiff chop. I mean, I think Gunther going, all right, I'm going to absorb this. I'm going to smile. I could kill you, but I do my killings in the ring. I don't. Yeah, I mean, in a way, as a heel, you can say, well, it's just better for them not to fight till next week. And just sort of in a booking meta-structural sense, don't get a bunch of physical activity between them first. But it seems like Gunther's character to just be like, I'm not going to sell that. I have to recover from it, but I'm not going to sell it once I recover, and I'm going to smile. And then you can kind of see it in his mind. He's like, I'm already plotting what I'm going to do to him next week in retaliation. So I was okay with it. What do you think, Bruce?
Yeah, to me, it seemed like he was as shocked as we were at how hard Jimmy slapped him. And then once it registered, he just kind of like, all right, I got you. And, Jimmy did look kind of like a badass, just slapping him, walking the way while glaring at him. So, I think it made me really, I know what's going to happen. Like, Gunther's going to destroy him in 3 minutes and whatnot. But I'm looking forward to what happens next week in those 3 minutes, right? Because of what happened tonight, just in those 10, 15 seconds. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff, again, that give me something to latch onto, and that is something that I can latch onto. It makes me excited for next week.
All right, BJF, back to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say what Bruce said. Do you think next week he'll absolutely destroy Jimmy, and then that'll give Jay the impetus to finally defeat him at WrestleMania?
Yeah, Bruce, what do you think?
Well, I think this ties into the post-match and then Jimmy talking to his brother because, the slip on the spear attempt, for everybody who thinks that it was a botch, that was obviously planned. And it was, if you didn't realize that, it was obviously planned by how Jimmy talked to his brother after that, talking about immediately, you slip, it keeps happening, yada, yada, yada. This isn't the Jimmy this is the Jay that could win, the Jay who won the Royal Rumble, the Jay who was the right-hand man, the Jay who became main event Jay Uso. That is who can beat Gunther. So it's kind of going back to Cody wanting to have the old John Cena back as well. But this, what is going to, it's not that Jimmy getting his ass beat is going to be the impetus for Jay to kind of reassert himself and win. It's going to be the catalyst that brings everything else together. The slips, the attacks are behind, losing 3 times, as he said to Gunther already, that is going to make him reignite that fire and pull something out of him and get it. And Jey Uso, I think, is the obvious person who this WrestleMania is going to be their make or break moment in their career. He's either going to be a champion and live up to that and have a nice, memorable reign, or he's going to flounder as champion. And you know what? Even if he flounders, good on WWE for trying it and for going with something different than what they have been for the last, take out Roman Reigns, take out Gunther, but the decade before that, just trying something different. And I appreciate that. And to me, even if Jay fails in terms of what we think a WWE champion should be and how they should draw and how they're perceived, I think it's still a success in the long run because they have shown in Paul Levesque, at least early, they are thinking about things in a different way than the previous regime, and they are willing to take chances on people, even if in the end those chances don't really work out. And it's not as if this is, Jack Swagger taking the. I'm sorry to go back to Jack Swagger; it's such an obvious example, but like Jack Swagger or Jinder Mahal taking the title on a show that people aren't really watching as much. This is someone who was a part of the biggest storyline in pro wrestling in 20, 25 years. Someone who has the most fan support. I mean, even if you look at Cody as a champion, the person who gets the most fan support in all of these shows is Jey Uso. The crowd tonight yeeting the entire time. I don't know if your Netflix had this, Wade, but when they went to break, they actually stayed with the camera shots in studio. So I got the entire yeeting entrance and everything, and all that. So the entire 3 minutes, they were hyped. And to me, they built a star, even if he's not someone that will be a world champion for a year, 2 years. Maybe he has a 3-month reign. Maybe he has a 6-month reign. He loses at SummerSlam. He is still going to come out of this better, and they're going to have someone who's going to be a top-level star that is there to – I know he's a little older, but Orton is old as hell. Punk is old as hell. And I'm saying old as hell in terms of wrestling, right? Yeah. I'm 37. I'm getting there. Like, they have to replace some of these top stars eventually. And I emailed you and Todd and Rich about this a couple months ago about AEW and their 50-year-olds. WWE does not want to be in that same position in a couple years. So having someone like Jay as a new star in that men's division, even though, yes, he is closer to 40 and higher than that, it's still something different, and it gives fans something to latch onto that, again, it's not a rehash, right?
And it gives them somebody who, regardless of what happens if he beats Gunther and has a title reign or just comes up short, he has now had a high-profile world title match against a dominant heel champion, and that puts him in a position then to be more meaningful if a Penta beats him, heel Penta beats him, or a heel Braun Breaker beats him, or it just adds a little something fresh to if they team up again. He's had this history at a top level. I want to add about the Jay thing too. The idea that Jimmy's going, yeah, you need to get your head on straight. Like you're doing things you would never do. We were asking like a few weeks ago, is this going to peak too early? How do they fill 6-7 weeks with this? Well, now we got it last week. Mm-hmm. I assume it was intentional last week. They're not just building on something accidental this week and doing it on purpose this week. But they're telling a story either way, which is Jay's the beatings Gunther is giving him, and the stress and the pressure is getting to him, and it's adding we got a month to go. We got to do something to not just repeat the same thing each week. So now the story arc for a few weeks is going to be did Jay peak too early? Is the pressure getting to him? It makes fans, I think, gives them incentive all the more to cheer him harder and believe in him.
Well, and it's a different kind of pressure than when he was facing Roman for the title, because while that's a family pressure as well, he was decidedly the underdog. And here, people are wanting him to win so much that he's also feel that extra pressure, right? People going into his match with Roman, no one expected him to win. As much as, from the late summer, early fall 2020, I was bashing the drum. Jey Uso is the one who needs to dethrone Roman Reigns. Jey Uso needs to win the Royal Rumble. Jey Uso needs to win and whatnot. So I am a big fan of Jay. And don't get me wrong, like all the things I'm saying about him, whether he succeeds or fails, I'm a big fan of Jey Uso. The thing is, though, when it comes to what he's doing with Gunther and this added stuff with the pressure, he's never had that pressure as a singles wrestler where the entire, essentially, wrestling world is behind him, and all the fans want him to win so much that they're almost manifesting it to a certain extent, right? It's kind of like Daniel Bryan WrestleMania, but not to that extent, because that was a lot of.
But it's a template.
It's a template, right? This time they're actually working with it, right? So that's another thing they could add on to it. Is they didn't really mention it in that backstage interaction, but man, all the fans want me to do this, and I don't know if I can live up to that, right? That's another layer they could add on to it, which those contexts, that context just makes it matter more so than it does before.
PJ, anything else quick? Because I do want to get to, we got 4 other people on hold and emails to get to too. I want to be sure we hit on everything, but I want to give you a chance if you got anything else to add. Oh, sorry, BJF. I muted your mic because of some background noise. Go ahead. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, just last thing. From everything about El Grande Americano, from the video package to being from the Gulf of America, to the outfit he had, to Adam Pearce just being so exasperated. Yeah, I've just signed him, which led to Adam Pearce just going nuts over the course of the thing. But yeah, I really liked that. Really enjoyed it.
So I said early in the show, BJF, I thought this was the worst week for Adam Pearce, and the reason is I thought his acting got. Look, normally you relate to him and you empathize with him, but you don't think he's being a cartoonish, like sort of Disney tweener channel school teacher principal who the kids have driven crazy. Like, and that's what this came across as. Like, Adam Pearce is suddenly, he's been driven crazy by the kids, and it's like some slapstick show for like adolescents. And he hasn't played that role before. He's come across more serious. And so, again, I don't know if it's something, the cliche, something in the water, if it's jet lag, if it's travel or what, but I actually thought it was too much. And I think it was funny. So I'm not it was entertaining. Oh, yeah. I'm not saying it wasn't, but not, I use the analogy all the time. I'd love to have donuts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day and a late night snack, but we know we can't. It would be fun, but that doesn't justify doing it. And it was fun seeing Adam Pearce doing this, but tone-wise, I think it undercut and took away from the integrity of him being the best GM in history, perhaps, because he's this middle management guy. You can see the proverbial sweat beads like just coming out, but he's always played it. He's picked moments to grow frustrated, but it's more like, I need a drink. But this was like over the top flourishes of frustration. And I think it was meant to be kind of like Cole just said, oh, Pearce is having quite the week. I just say dial it back. Like, I think less is more when it comes to Pearce. It started to feel too much about him. And instead, I've thought he's been useful to give credibility to what's been going on around him, but not make it all about him. And this just sort of felt like, this is my week for all the clips to present to the Emmy committee. I want my Emmy, so I'm going to really turn it up this week. So it was fun, but too much. Also, Bianca Belair's acting was awful in that segment, and they made her out to be an idiot. Adam Pearce, who am I facing next week or at WrestleMania? I'm so confused. How are you confused? There's 3-year-olds who've never watched Raw before who tuned in this afternoon on Netflix after preschool and understood. You're going to face the winner of a match between 2 wrestlers who you were just standing in the ring with. How are you, as Bianca Belair, with the agency she should have with her experience, looking at the writer who told her, go say, I'm confused, I don't know who I'm wrestling at WrestleMania, and go and say that? How do you agree to say that? It's not confusing. It's really clear. Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, next week you face the winner. It's one sentence, like 10 words. And her acting was terrible. And he's like, oh, and you're going to be a referee. And then she's like, oh, I don't know how to be a referee. Again, it was funny. Like, I'm going to slap my knees. Oh, that was funny. Okay. But it makes her out. It wasn't good acting. And I thought this show had too much of that. So, man, Belair better be a better actor, or they shouldn't ask her to react to moments like you have to be a referee. And again, it just felt out of step with who she is, and especially who she ought to be on the course that she's on. Bruce, any pushback, augmentation of that?
Exasperated middle manager Michael Scott Adam Pierce is my favorite version of Scrap Daddy in terms of making me laugh. Now, I'm with you.
What's your second and third favorite version of Scrap Daddy?
Probably Ring of Honor, right?
Okay, I'm joking.
I'm just saying in terms of making me laugh, but in terms of like actual Scrap Daddy, definitely Ring of Honor, right?
Yeah,
but just thinking about how you have talked about him and Nick Aldis as these authority figures who have straddled the needle of being neutral and having that authority while not, not just abusing their powers, right? Not just picking sides, but really trying to maintain a sense of credibility throughout the whole show. Tonight was one of those where, again, I get why he's so exasperated, especially regarding the 3 women in the main event for WrestleMania. I get that part. But it bled out to everything else in the segments tonight too, right? And I think that is where they missed the mark. The only thing I liked about that segment with Belair is when they said, when he told her, you're going to be the special guest referee, and she said, I don't know how to be a referee. And to me, why I like that is because it placed an importance on the skill of having to actually be a referee. Because I think a lot of us just look at being a referee as you get down into the 1, 2, 3. Well, in pro wrestling, it's a lot more than that. It's not just doing the kayfabe of all the calls and the counts and whatnot, but you got that earpiece in there. You gotta know what spot you gotta be and what's coming up next. If you're gonna take a bump, when you're gonna take it.
Well, that's not her character was not responding to the earpiece part.
Sure. Okay, let me leave to the
but I get what you're saying, but that you lost me there.
Right, like NBA refs, MLB umpires, hockey refs, they all go through extensive training and retraining to be refs. It's not something you just get on there and you're able to do, right? My experience is I reffed kindergarten, 1st grade soccer, and 5th and 6th grade basketball. And even that is difficult to do. I'm not talking anything higher level than that, and we're talking professional here. So that if you're looking at it just in the kayfabe sense, this is a skill level that just to be thrown into the do. That's like telling me you're gonna go and you're gonna fly this commercial jet.
Well, no, maybe with less ramifications for the people near you, but yes.
Sure.
But yeah, so I'll take an untrained referee over an untrained pilot. Frank Pettiani will back me up on that. However, Bruce, she didn't go. Your point's well taken. I think that's good for her to say, hey, wait, I'm not qualified. But couldn't she have said, hey, I'm not qualified? But she didn't. She goes, huh? I don't know how to referee. It was like, the acting was just awful. And I'm sorry, there are people standing around watching that. Don't worry about hurting her feelings. Worry about hurting our feelings as viewers. That was awful. Tell her that was awful. Act like an adult who's told you're being asked to do something that you don't know how to do. Like I think if this was her 7th take and it's the best she could do, then you'd be like, Wade, you're being mean. Well, no, you're on television asking us for our time with limited time each day. You got to be good at what you do. So if you want to make the storyline, I don't know how to referee. Also, in a meta sense, know how to act and have people around you going, that was a bad take. Let's try it again. Let's dial it down. It's just wrestling works better when it's lower key, when you're trying to convey something instead of the cartoonish over the top. Like Derek Mitchell said, Adam Pearce is Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell this week. If Zach or Screech did something, Pearce and Bianca overdid it this week, and Bianca, but the spirit of what they want to do is great. I've never heard a wrestler go, I don't know how to referee. I can't do that. Wrestlers are usually full of themselves and arrogant. They think refereeing is easy, and they're just, so point made. But I did have to push back that she didn't just go, I don't know how to referee. She went, oh, I don't know how to referee. It's like, come on. It's not. Anyway, BJF, thank you. Any closing words?
No, just go VIP and bring back Sean's music when he comes on.
Very good. Thanks, VJ. Good to see you.
Gotta get pressured into doing it, Wade.
Yeah, I know. Now, I'm going to be more resistant just to be stubborn. No, I'm
spiteful. Just play Javier's every time.
Exactly. All right, let's go to Darrell next. You are up. Darrell, welcome. What's on your mind about Raw and our conversation tonight?
Oh man, a lot. How y'all doing today?
Good.
Hey, Darrell.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah, long time, Bruce, long time.
Yes, sir. How you been?
All right, all right. Yeah, so I was listening to the earlier conversation where y'all was talking about the beginning and this conversation right here, and that fit in perfectly into the question that I was going to ask, and it's more of an overall question. I'm thinking with how long WrestleMania has been pushed back for a little while, they have all these extra weeks, and to me, everything sounds more like a pacing issue and not knowing how to put the pacing and everything together, especially with Cena. Somebody outlined that wrong. They should have let him cut a promo for the outline of what he would be saying the next few weeks, so we'll know where he was heading. So we didn't have to guess or be expecting it. Because I don't want the story told in the me one show. Then what happened to the next 7 shows when you done told the whole story in the first one? So and with the women, you get Bianca acting crazy and not knowing how to put it together like a Drew. Like when Drew telling you a story, he can take whatever and make it work for his character and for the story overall. You got all these people doing something and trying to figure out the pacing, and they ain't good at it. So is it a pacing issue that you feel like that's causing these kerfuffles or mix ups, or could it? What do you think playing a big part in it outside of the performers?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's just one thing.
Yeah.
I think there's egos. It's, with Rock and Cena. I think it's to some of this is going to be Paul Levesque's leadership as the head of creative overseeing things. And some of it is on the performers themselves for, either not realizing, what pieces are missing or what bad acting is going on, or like with Belair. I mean, I can say her acting was terrible, but like to me, it's even more egregious that she allowed her character to say, "Adam Pearce, I'm so confused. Who do I face at WrestleMania?" It's how does she? I mean, is she so like just disengaged that she just does what she's told and then goes back to her other thoughts about her life outside? I mean, like you should have some like pride and attentiveness to your character being smart enough to know it's pretty simple what happened. So I mean, that's on everybody in that segment. The acting was bad. Bianca's character shouldn't have said something so idiotic. And there needs to be people going, wait a second, I know our time's limited and we like to do things in one take, but this shouldn't make error. And if it was live, then it should have been something that was addressed earlier, both the acting and sort of a general sense, but of course that line. It's all these things. And yes, they absolutely should have had, and hopefully they do, even if I disagree with it, an outline for what Cena is going to say each week. I mean, this should be storyboarded out, so to speak, so that they know they're going to get to a certain place, and then they work backwards from there and dole it out, in a way that makes sense. So, Darrell, I think there's enough problems with kind of big and little things, acting, wrestlers saying dumb things and then leaving big things out. I mean, I think it's a big variety of things. If there was a simple answer and you could just wave one and go, "This is the one thing they need to do," that would make sense. Bruce, do you want to jump in on that? And then I'll throw it back to Darrell.
Nah.
All right, Darrell. Yep, Darrell, back to you then.
Yeah, I just feel like pacing just off, and they not telling the story, because the better stories that they are telling right now is like with Chad Gable and what they doing with him. And
He was 6 tonight, Darrell. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, but they're hitting on those and they're not hitting on some of the main stories that they're trying to set up for WrestleMania, because it seems like it's so far off and they don't know when to let stuff start building. Like tonight they kind of slipped in it with the Jey Uso thing, because they're trying to build off the box that he had last week and jumping off the rope, because I don't think that was on purpose. He tried to do that on purpose, but they fell into it in a nicer way by just having him do the little slip when he was going to hit the spear and slip. And then now you can tell a story, and that kind of fixed that storyline for them right there. The other places you don't have a fix unless John Cena gonna come out here and cut an incredible promo next week and tie it all in with The Rock and all of this, because everything just seemed weird. Everything right now just seemed weird.
Well, in the chat, Darrell, regarding the part of what we've been talking about here with Bianca is Jack Reeve going, "Wait, I think this made Bianca seem like a whiny heel, and she was booed, which isn't great before they even get to the potential heel turn." If the idea is Bianca is
she was booed before that.
What's that?
Sorry, she was booed before they even had that backstage segment too.
Yes. That's the whole other thing I've been talking about all week. Last week is they've, and I wrote this in my report at PWTorch.com tonight on Raw. So we're gonna potentially get a one-on-one match that we've always wanted with Rhea Ripley challenging, or Bianca Belair challenging Rhea Ripley if she beats Io Sky next week. But to get there, they've ruined 2 characters. They've made people completely lose their affection for Rhea Ripley and possibly a rival to Cody in terms of the most popular, admired wrestler. And Bianca Belair's been all over the place, and they didn't do a good heel turn. They haven't kept her truly babyface. She's shown signs of being an adult, but now she's showing signs of being easily confused by things that are very simple. And if this was an idea of, okay, we want heat on you for losing your patience with this complexity. The first of all, she was right to go, wait. I earned, or she went, but I earned the title shot in the Elimination Chamber. I want my one-on-one WrestleMania match. Rhea doesn't get to choose her time and place, and Pierce said the same thing. There was good stuff in there, but then they just drive outside the lines of the good stuff, and they're in the ditch and driving over gravel and bumping into the median. I mean, so someone's just, I guess the answer, Darrell, to your initial question is quality control.
Yeah.
Quality control. And pacing is part of it, as Darrell brings up, Bruce. Like, you want to pace yourself in a way. Like, if Jack is right and they're just trying to, like, lay the groundwork for Bianca being a heel by having her be easily confused and impatient and petulant, well, they're doing that with Rhea Ripley, too. And I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt that it's a master plan. But if I did, and it is a master plan, it's terribly executed.
The last thing I'll add to this is, whatever the writers did for this segment, I think they really made a mistake by having Adam Pearce note that Rhea Ripley had a rematch waiting for her the entire time, and she just avoided it, because that makes her look even worse when she could just, like, instead of whining and going through all this and doing the stupid thing with writing your name on a contract that was already signed, like, you could have just had your fucking rematch. I mean, sorry, you could have had your damn rematch, right? So like, to me, it just, this whole thing, the only person that is actually looking okay is Io Sky, because she's standing up for herself against these two who are trying to impede upon what should be at this point her WrestleMania title match, right? So it's just, this whole thing is all convoluted, all in bad places, and it was made worse tonight.
Yeah. Darrell, back to you.
And one other thing that was made worse is let's talk about the main event. Like, I understand that you might be trying to get to a point with a multi-man match. It's similar to the women to a point. You're trying to work a way to get to a multi-man match, maybe, but you're doing too much of going around having all these matches, people losing and stuff like that. Kind of downgrading certain people, and that you're trying to put in the match and make seem important by doing what you're doing and commingling all these people together. Where he joined the Judgment Day. Now you got the Penta playing in his bad habit of playing to the crowd too much, looking to the crowd. Well, I'm gonna hit him, throwing back the chair. No, I'm gonna hit you. Now we're gonna all jump on. And you could have just built to a stronger match by setting up a couple of weeks of Braun and Penta going up and talking to each other or whatever, and making that match as strong as possible. We're trying to figure out how to keep it from getting hotter and trying to be a couple of other people in the match and just making more out of it than you would have. I just felt like tonight, that main event, they shouldn't even had the match. They should have tried to figure something else out. You could have had a tag team match with both of them, because you had them jump on and him do the save with Braun last week. You could just set up a tag team match, not a title match.
Second mute.
The main event and the booking of it lately, and the cop-out DQ finishes are really a growing problem with Paul Levesque. I mean, we invested again in a main event and got a lame DQ ending, and it's storytelling, but it's also cowardly booking. I mean, you can't book matches and condition your audience to believe they're not going to see a finish, and you're deflating. I mean, this is not like Vince McMahon was perfect and Paul Levesque is ruining everything. That is not the theme here. I think there are problems this week with this show that to me are warning signs of a lack of some quality control. But there's been, some of these are things that just recur now and then. It might have just been an off week for certain reasons, and crew might be very tired being overseas all this time. And there's a lot of things can factor in. I don't want to be too hard on them, but it's not like they didn't happen. I mean, if they're tired and burned out and things are discombobulated because of travel, doesn't mean it didn't air on Netflix Live, and so we still have to cover it. But some caveats. Maybe it won't be a problem 2 months from now. Is all I'm saying. Maybe they'll get kind of back on track. But booking a clean finish in a main event just should be the rule. Like you need to. I almost think like you should have to go through like a 3-week 7-step process with a bunch of like panels and judges and like third parties deciding if you want to do a non-finish or a DQ finish to a main event. Like it should be as difficult as like getting a permit to build a new deck in California. Like, like going through City Hall and waiting 3 months. Like it should be a process to book a non-finish or a DQ finish in a main event on a TV show. I mean, I honestly, like, who would watch the NBA if you invest in 47 minutes of gameplay and then they just throw the game out because a coach threw a towel and a star player tripped on it? Like, people would stop watching the NBA. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And you know what? Really good teams lose. Really good fighters lose.
And they get blown out.
It doesn't, yes, exactly. It does not define them. The Denver Nuggets still are going to be in the conversation for an NBA title, even if the Lakers just destroyed them the other night. Whatever, so that's gotta change, because I watched that match going, ooh, what's the finish going to be? And I like kind of naively tricked myself into thinking, man, it's going to be a big deal if Penta. What does that mean if Penta loses? Will he join Judgment Day in order to have help? Because now he came up short, and that's kind of what heels are, people who can't win on their own. And they've got a big story arc plan there. Or does Braun lose to Penta? And they're going to shoot Penta to the moon, and that's going to justify, Braun getting a rematch against Penta. No, they're just going to do a lame DQ finish, and none of it mattered. None of it mattered, except as the match becomes when a match becomes a conduit to fill TV time and set up an angle afterwards. You're conditioning your audience to your peril that the matches themselves don't count. It's just about some moves and crowd chants. But it's an exhibition. It's not there won't be a finish, and you owe it to your audience to book finishes more often. It's worse than distraction finishes, because at least then you're like, well, there's a finish. It's just a person was undisciplined and unfocused leading up to it. But this is just worse. Bruce, you want to jump in quick?
Yeah. So first thing is, Wade, I think a good VIP exclusive would be Wade Keller's flowchart on when you can use a DQ finish. That would be, I think, a nice little thing to look
like
at.
all the stages you go through to get it approved. Like
yeah,
like
exactly.
trying to build a new addition, a new screen porch in your house, and does it fit zoning laws, and is the roof one inch too high, and is the drainage proper? It shouldn't be that hard. Like, I'd like to see that. Yep.
Yeah, no. And then this is also enigmatic of Shawn Michaels' booking in NXT. He loves having these DQ finishes that lead to a tag team match or a triple threat match or a fatal 4-way match. He just loves doing this. So, that is one thing about both of their booking strategies I wish they wouldn't do, because I'm like you, Wade, wins and losses, they matter insofar as when it is straight up, it is a boon for whoever wins it. But if it's straight up, it's not necessarily a detriment to the person that lost, right? I mean, maybe if you got squashed, sure. But as we said, I'm a Sixers fan, and this year has been a lot more blowouts than it has been victories, right? But even though there's been the blowouts, I'm still a fan of my team. I'm still cheering for them, because eventually the hope is they'll come around and be good again. And that's kind of the story you want to go on with wrestlers as well, right? So to the match, to the main event and all that. Darrell, Wade, I know it's not really you, but if anybody thought that was going to be a clean finish, I got a nice parcel of land in Waikiki I'd like to sell you, and I swear it'll be under market price. It'll be nice value. You'll get a steal on this deal. All right, just let me know. DM me. All right. Penta's gear, I thought tonight was really crisp and clean. I'm just so used to Penta having the dark gear with maybe some bright accents from AEW, that tonight it just really stood out to me that on a higher level it felt like. And then regarding the entirety of having Judgment Day involved, leading to the triple threat, this WrestleMania right now is, we already have we have 2 triple threats, right? We have Roman Punk and Rollins, and then we have Bianca, Rhea, and Io, because it's going to get to a triple threat with Bianca being the special guest referee. Something's going to happen. It's not going to be a clean finish. It's going to be a triple threat. So we're going to have another triple threat here, right? With Finn Balor, with Braun Breaker, and Penta. And or Darrell brought up tag team. I know Phoenix is supposed to be on SmackDown. Maybe they bring in Phoenix and put him with Ray kind of as a one-off, or put him with Penta as a one-off to introduce his brother, yada yada. But I do think it's going to lead to a triple threat at WrestleMania between these three. So we already have 3 triple threat matches for 2 nights. That's too many multi-person matches for me. I want straight up one-on-one matches or tag team matches that'll go like that. And I get it. You want to get people the WrestleMania moments, their paychecks, whatever. That needs
it's
to
not
be
about wrestlers. It's not about wrestler bank accounts. It's about the fans. And
there needs to be more coherent booking, and there is not coherent booking right now.
Pay them to be bench players. Give them their WrestleMania payoff, and put them in a SmackDown match, but give them WrestleMania payoff. Put them on a Raw match, WrestleMania payoff. But do a storyline to make NXT special. Give them an extra date there or something. But yeah, this idea of we need to include everybody. This is not Little League. Not everyone's required to have 4 minutes on the court. It's like or 3 at bats. Like that's just. These are grown ups, and some years you make it, some you don't. And frankly, that they build into their storyline. Oh, I don't have a path to WrestleMania. Jimmy Uso, I don't have a path to WrestleMania unless this happens or that. Like, well, then you got to sit people out of WrestleMania. So it does seem like people really will. That was like that whole sappy, over the top, melodramatic John Cena. I don't have a path to WrestleMania, so I'm just so sad, and I'm just going to sit in front row and buy a ticket. Like nobody buys that BS. They know there's plenty of spots for John Cena, maybe not the main event. But that doesn't sound very good. It's main event or nothing for me. I have to start and get full, all my minutes, or I won't do it. That stuff. I mean, there's a way to tell the story and have integrity, but solving it with triple threat and 4-way matches. And again, this boom period was built on one-on-one matches with a baby face and a heel, and whatever they're doing with Rhea Ripley right now, and what it's I think it's worse than what they did with Becky Lynch, but it's similar in that. And I defended that to an extent, because I thought they could make it work, and there were some wrestlers she could have put over and worked with as a heel, and it might have in the end justified it, even if it did some damage to her character, and it might have freshened her up. But it turned out it ruined her, and they got nothing out of it. So I was hopeful, and that hope was ill-founded. But with Rhea, I mean, I got to see how this plays out. But I mean, I'm not if you know what, Rhea should just beat Io Sky next week, and then Bianca Belair should turn heel, and Rhea should completely act like she was hit in the head and acting weird for 3 weeks and apologize. And we got a month to fix this. Let's just fix this starting next week and do what people want to see. Turn Bianca heel, or save the turn for WrestleMania if you really have to. But I don't think WrestleMania should be a conduit for angles. I think WrestleMania should be the climax of a rivalry, but they can mix it up a little. Darrell, anything quick? I only have about 20 minutes left, and I got to get to other callers and emails too.
Only quick thing I would say, I was used to building on stories that you emotionally into. I follow Shawn Michaels, and for years he was having the best match on WrestleMania and had the better story on WrestleMania on most of those matches. So you could have told me with Rhea, hey, I slipped on a banana peel, and I'm here to show both of y'all that I'm coming and I'm Rhea Bloody Ripley, and that would have told the story for me and just built off of that. And she could have faced both of them and did it like that, or have an intense battle for Braun Breaker to have against Penta. No fear versus the man who finna show you fear.
Yep.
And you could have told the story like that and left it as that.
Yep. I mean, there are simple storylines to tell, and they wind themselves into complicated situations that end up with less because it's Little League and we need Io Sky and WrestleMania, or it's Little League.
Keep it simple, Wade. Keep it simple. That's what I was always told. Keep it nice and simple. Sometimes simple beat.
Totally right. I mean, that's the thing. I think bookers don't want to admit, and I don't. Wrestling booking is hard. So this sounds like I'm underplaying the challenge. But when you set your pins up well, that's the hard work. But once you set them up, once you got your characters in place, once your titles have integrity, once fans believe that a match is going to have an outcome, once you have a brand name event like WrestleMania, like once you do all that hard work, the other part's easy. You just take a wrestler as a heel who fans really want to see lose, and you put him against a babyface who fans really want to see win, and there's stakes, whether it's pride or a title or contention or a deeply personal feud. When you set all that up, get out of the way. Just announce the match and let talented wrestlers go out and cut promos. And when you complicate things with, that's when bookers are like, I don't want to do the simple stuff. Well, no, the simple stuff is the reward for all the hard work you put in making good decisions the previous 6 months to 6 years. Integrity of belts and integrity of title matches, that's years in the making. The integrity of heels and faces that fans feel passionately one way or the other about, that takes months and years in the making. You pay it off by that easy part is putting a match together and letting the wrestlers do their thing. Stay out of it. Keep it simple. Do the hard work and then keep it simple when it's time to match those people against each other on these big events. Darrell, thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go to David Miller next. Then we got Rivers and Andy on deck. I'm going to be a little quick because we're running short on time. I got to be out of here in about 20 minutes. David, appreciate your patience calling. Good to see you again. What's on your mind about Raw tonight?
Yeah, you too. And I know you're running short on time, so I'll make it quick. First of all, Adam Pearce, when Rhea Ripley came out, his reaction reminded me of Steve Martin in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles when he finds out that his rental car is not there and the bus leaves him. And he starts throwing a fit and just over the top. You're messing with the wrong guy. I thought it was funny, and I think it's good in small doses, but I don't want to see a lot of it. But that the triple threat with the ladies thing, that's a mess. I don't know what they're doing here. Rhea is coming across as
a whiny, petulant child, in the words of the GM last week.
And I couldn't lie at this point. She doesn't seem, they're not doing her any favors by having her get pie faced twice, 2 weeks in a row. I like the action.
I think it's at 3, David.
Of the
3 weeks in a row.
The action was good, but I don't know what they're doing. Bianca came 3 weeks in a row. Okay, 3 weeks in a row there. Yeah, you're right. So pardon me, but my gosh, deja vu all over again. This throughout the whole show with the first segment and then this, and then Bianca comes across as she's coming across like a heel. I think she's definitely heading in that direction. But I also want to bring up real quick. You talked about that slap that Jimmy Uso gave Gunther. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did slap the taste out of his mouth. But let's talk about that bump that Dragon Lee took
on his head,
suplex onto the floor.
Okay, that one. He took a couple that stood out. That was
Yeah, and that one to the floor. Oh my gosh! But I also have to say, El Americano Grande. He has the greatest entrance music of all time. That Stars and Stripes Forever mariachi version. I was rolling on the floor when I heard that. That is the funniest thing I think I've ever heard. But not sure where they're going with that. But I'm also thinking that Ray Phoenix is somehow going to be involved in this situation at the end of the show. Whether he's possibly since the Judgment Day couldn't get Penta, maybe they can get Ray Phoenix.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, to me, the going after Penta, it doesn't feel like we need a luchador. So if we can't get him, we'll get a different, masked luchador. So I don't think they're going that direction. And I think people would think, well, Ray with his ring style is just way too athletic and flashy to be a heel. However, you could introduce him briefly, and you could get him over as a babyface because he is the new kid in town and thinks, hey, this seems like a fun group. I'll join them. Although you should watch Raw and know better. But then he just gets, exasperated with them quickly, and that makes him a babyface, and then he feuds with Dom. I mean, you could tell that story as a way to introduce Ray. Bruce, your thoughts on that, and also Grande Americana.
So I'm pretty sure Phoenix has already been teased for SmackDown with the vignette on Friday night.
Good point. Yeah.
Which brings him out of this equation. But I mean, when it comes to the Lucha Bros, I've always been a bigger fan of Phoenix than Penta, and it's because of exactly what you were saying, Wade. Like, there's just so much more charisma, not just as a personality, but in the ring from Ray Phoenix. The only issue with him, of course, and why AEW didn't push him to the moon as much as they could have, is he gets injured too much. And it kind of goes back to what one of the homies said on Blue Sky tonight, in that Braun Breaker is definitely going to injure himself doing one of his moves, but that's a real wrestler right there, like real graps, right? Because like Phoenix is kind of like the early AJ Styles, right? Didn't know how to pace himself in the ring to the point that you don't need to do all your moves full bore, 100%, and you're going to get hurt, right? I think being in WWE is going to help both Penta and Phoenix in that regard. Penta didn't really go that hard in terms of those things. In those ladder matches and things he would do, but his normal style wasn't as much of a risk on his body as Phoenix's is. So I think being in WWE is going to help Phoenix a lot in terms of that. Him becoming a more reliable and consistent wrestler, not having those injury bugs as much as he did in AEW. So I think the tag team match is going to be Braun Breaker and Penta versus Dom and Finn next week. That's probably the most likely outcome of this. And then from there, it leads to the triple threat. But yeah, I think I am excited for Fenix to come. I don't think he's going to play a part in this feud, even though, you know, there's an obvious end to him being the tag team partner to his brother.
Yeah. All right, David, anything else for us?
One more thing real quick, going back to Cena and Cody. With Cena's promo, he could have taken the part about the spinner belt, added that to last week's promo, and completely eliminated this week's promo, because he basically said nothing else other than that, you know, talking about the spinner belt and talking about, you know, winning the title and retiring with it. That's the only thing different he said this week.
The only other addition is he reacted to the social media viral moment of him and the kid. That was new too.
Right.
But I mean, largely, I'm with you. There was no. I'm going to retire with the title is a significant new addition. I want to give credit to that, but it doesn't change the fact that he spent a lot of time out there saying a lot of the same things in a not particularly exciting way, like the guy at the party who is droning on, and people are like, when can I say it? I got to refill my drink and break away from this. And it started to get in that zone, and John Cena's second heel promo ever should not give us those feelings, and kind of started giving me those feelings. Yeah. Bruce is nodding along.
Yeah, and what does not make sense to me is this. Let's go back to Hogan's turn at Bash at the Beach. When Hogan went to WCW, fans were booing him, you know, because he was beating Ric Flair. And they were booing him. So when he turned at Bash at the Beach, it made sense, because he was, you know, they were booing him. They were kind of turning on him.
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense. Cena came back he's on his farewell tour. I didn't care much for Cena. I thought he was overpushed back in the day. But even him coming back this time on his farewell tour, I find myself, I'm pulling for him. It's a nostalgia thing. People got wrapped up in that. Why now? Like you said, why now? And what did The Rock promise him?
Yep, that's my point. Is you got to address, did Rock promise you something? Number two, when did you decide to resent the fans? And why are you ignoring the fact that they've been cheering you the last couple of years, Bruce?
Nope, it's the why. It all comes back to the why.
There you go. Yep. David, thanks. Anything else real quick?
Nope, that's all. Thank you, Wade.
Cool.
Thank you,
Bruce.
Bruce.
Thanks, David. Yep, appreciate it. Yeah, Bruce, you it's all about the why. That's a good catchphrase that they should be asking themselves, you know, going into next week. All right, let's go to Andy from Houston, and or actually I said Rivers was up first, and Andy from Houston. We'll do this in order. Rivers, welcome. What's on your mind about tonight's Raw and our conversation?
Hey guys, we'll be super quick because I know you got to go. Just a couple of things. First of all, the real question is, can Bianca get her referee license in time? I'm not sure how long that course takes, but I didn't see the whole show. I just want to register officially my disgust with this early start time on the West Coast. I did not move to California. I moved to California for a nice 5 to 8 p.m. wrestling experience, so this is new. Just the El Grande Americano.
Rivers, you're not gonna find any sympathy from me. I live in Hawaii, man. It's even 3 hours before that.
Oh wow.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
right.
Rivers. As far as Rivers, I'll tell you what, I don't do this very often, but I will use my considerable clout to get Raw back to its regular time slot next month for you.
Next month? Okay, thank you.
You can count on it.
El Grande Americano, I like Chad. I always like a mask gimmick as well. I think it's fun. I guessed a couple of weeks ago that this was going to end up in a mask versus mask match at WrestleMania. That makes more sense now because he took off his opponent's mask this week. I'm just wondering, WrestleMania is looking packed, not stacked, but it's looking packed right now. Do they have time for a Chad Gable match? If not, what are they doing this for? And also, out of all of the mask like gimmicks, I think like Captain America or what was Dusty's? Was it the Midnight Rider, Midnight Cowboy, something like that? It was always to get around a rule or to show someone up. Is this the first time the mask gimmick has just been on the person's own volition? Because
that's a heck of a point. Yeah.
If he's unmasked
Like, what is
the WrestleMania, there's no humiliation, or it's just he could just stand up and be like, "Yo, yeah, it's me." Like, there's nothing.
Yeah, so the one question could be why. Another question could be to what ends? To what ends is he doing this? What advantage does it give Chad Gable other than for giggles? Like, because he's crazy, and I don't know. Like Derek Mitchell in the chat said, El Grande Americano, aka Chad Gable, allegedly, is in a long line of masked characters like G.Y. Diaz, Stager Lee, Dusty Rhodes is a Midnight Rider, Barry Windham is Dirty Yellow Dog, Hulk Hogan is Mr. America. There were storylines there about losing loser leaves town matches and being cheated and having to work your way back in. There's stories that explain why this is done. Gable should have been suspended by Adam Pearce for something he did, and then he came back as El Grande Americano, and then it's like, okay, he's trying to beat the system, but we know better. And is there something, Bruce, to explain to what ends he's doing this? I mean, he met he met with is it to gain a psychological advantage? Did he think his facial expressions were causing him to lose? What is going on?
So this also reminded me just now why I was laughing silently to myself was when Elias Sampson was in NXT. He lost the Loser Leaves Town match, and he came back as El Vagabundo for a couple weeks with the mask on, and it was, probably his best moment because it was Elias Sampson. But yeah, to me, I get the feeling that the mask is supposed to act as some sort of like superhero transformation for Chad Gable, kind of like I think one of the shows I watched as a kid was Mucha Lucha, and it was a wrestling-based show. And when they would have the mask and their gear on, they were more like, superpowered and everything. So I'm thinking like the mask puts them in a different sort of psychological mind. But they haven't explained it. That's the issue, right? They haven't explained any of this. And we need the why. And once we get the why, it makes more sense. And the one thing about this I don't like, it made me chuckle, and the absurdity of it is saying that he's from the Gulf of America. Phil Lindsay brought this up on Blue Sky. It's seen as a joke, and I get that he's a heel, but regarding everything that the current president did as a joke is exactly why we're in the space we are right now, including having this be called the Gulf of America, right? So, and I get it. WWE has real strong connections with the administration and all that, and they're not going to want to upset him. But I think this is one of those situations where they could have just said he's from anywhere in the South or Southwest or any Central or South American country, and not have had this political issue come into it. They're always talking about we keep politics out of it. Well, they just explicitly brought it into this with Grande Americano. So that's what I didn't like about this.
JB in Detroit emailed us.
I have to check.
One second, Rivers. Yeah, I was going to bring this up after our calls. JB from Detroit emailed about that very topic, Bruce. He goes, I think that announcing Chad Gable as from the Gulf of America is treading in dangerous territory for WWE. For a company who claimed to be void of politics, they sure lean into the American imperialism nonsense with Pat McAfee's comments, the Logan Paul American flag in Toronto at Elimination Chamber, and now with Gable today. This isn't the stuff that'll make Mexicans or Canadians boo the heels. It'll encourage them to not support the product. I think when Cole jokes about that for a haha line, and when that's a Chad Gable haha line, I think what WWE's underestimating is that it is emblematic of something that has people very scared about losing a democracy, about, you don't joke about imperialism. It's just like, it's so, I mean, I don't want to get super political at the moment, but WWE is obviously making it something we have to. Now, some might say, oh, it's such a silly thing, and it's just kind of, tell a little haha joke in a mid-card angle. And I get that. I don't think this is heavy-handed, but it's dangerous territory, and it comes across because of the hints we have had, or more than hints, about the politics of a lot of different people. AJ Styles laughing at a joke at the Hall of Fame, and Michael Cole aligning with Pat McAfee, who's very clear about his politics and all that. If you make a haha joke about something that is emblematic of something that feels very real and serious, that's unraveling something that I think a lot of people take for granted and will later regret treating the way that they are, it is going to bring people away from their escapism and into going, wait a second, it's too soon, it's not a joking matter, even because it's part of something larger that's going on that is kind of scary. And it shows that Michael Cole and WWE don't understand that that's actually a prevailing thought amongst a very, very sizable part of the population right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I can see how that joke gets written in a writer's room.
Yeah.
But because in of itself, it's funny because it's so ludicrous, but it makes the viewer then think of everything else, and everything else isn't funny.
And it just makes it seem like they think it's funny, and it's emblematic. It's actually it's indicative of something very, very serious, but it's a small part of it that's so easy to make fun of, because it's like it's like the marker on the hurricane drawing in order to prove you were right when you were wrong. Like, it's joke material, but it's like, oh my God, a president did that. And what does that tell us about so many things that apparently didn't matter last November to a lot of people? But go ahead.
I would have to check the timing, but I wouldn't rule out that this entire thing is to make that joke.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh,
I doubt that, but sadly I can't rule it out. Yeah.
I'll let you go. I just have one point, I guess, and then can get on. Having the Cody kind of storyline played on the same show as Gunther, that title's already kind of been devalued. It's never going to be as big, but it just really devalues every title under the heavyweight title. It's awful. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rivers. Yep. I got a 3-minute warning here, and I'll bring Andy from Houston on. We'll be rapid fire. Andy, welcome. Sorry for having such a limited time with you. Go ahead with your comments.
Oh, it's perfectly fine. I'll just have to keep this brief and stick to one point.
All right.
I'll send an email to the Fix about the women's issues.
By the way, Rich Fan and I'll be recording the flagship tomorrow night, and the emails we don't have time for today, I'll get to also. So just send them in for the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast flagship tomorrow.
Is that wadekellerpodcast at gmail.com?
Yeah, I've switched. I mean, I'll still get those, but wadekellerpodcast at proton.me is what I'm switching over to. A lot of people are doing that just to get away from certain things.
No, I know where you're coming from.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah. Okay, so the one thing I haven't heard any talk of, which I guess, the Cena and Cody are sucking up all the air, but CM Punk feels like he's single-handedly carrying just about anything serious in the WWE that doesn't feel like a cartoon or contrived or delayed. It's just, I marvel at the fact that his intensity and authenticity with the way he delivers his promos and makes you care about his issues and his goals makes me really regret the fact that, for all intents and purposes, he's not main eventing WrestleMania this year. He's not in the title picture. And I kind of wonder if we've been shortchanged of something better this year.
Yes,
because
I've thought that. I mean, like, it does. Well, finish your. I'm jumping in. Finish your sentence. I was eager to.
Oh no! Well, it's just you have Cena being almost a cartoon villain that is tone deaf to the actual feud that he's entered himself into.
Yeah.
You have Cody Rhodes, who has a very specific cadence and delivery where, like, he's built a character that is very Cena-esque in the way he's taken his place. And it's just Punk is...
There's an authenticity. I don't want to, like, throw Cody under the bus on this. I think he's doing the best with what he has to work with in the context of everything. But Punk stood out. And Bruce, in just a few seconds here, your thoughts on Punk, saying, hey, he's talking about what he wants, and does this even count as what he wants?
I think there's been two people, Punk, who I've never actually really been a fan of, so I'm giving him props. This shows that I'm I can give people credit where I think credit is due. But I think the other person that was actually conspicuous by their absence tonight is Drew McIntyre. And they've really been kind of keeping things
20
in
seconds, Bruce.
Stuff.
Don't bring up Drew yet if you can't wrap up 20 seconds.
That's all I was gonna say. And then I'll end with, I'm glad that my opinions of Lyra Valkyria from NXT have held true. Which is she's very bland. Very, very bland.
Yeah, I was watching going, when are we going to have a reason to know anything about her that makes us invested in her? All right, sorry for cutting everybody short, but I have a hard out in about 30 seconds here, and I want to do a decent wrap-up. Bruce, thank you so much. There's so much more we could have talked about. I'll be doing a Wade Keller hotline for everybody, and we'll have the flagship tomorrow. Send in your questions, wadekellerpodcast at proton.me. Andy, thanks. Do the same, please.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks. Yep, you bet. I got to pace myself better when you have that many people on hold. In the past, PWTorch VIP membership is available, and so we'll throw that graphic on the screen as we wrap up, and invite y'all to subscribe to the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast if you're not going to go VIP, and check out the flagship tomorrow. It'll be posted tomorrow night, and pwtorch.com/govip, or get a free trial by searching PWTorch VIP on Spotify or Patreon. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you on the flagship and then Wednesday after Dynamite.